بإسلامي وإيماني أضاء الكون وزمن بإسلامي وإيماني أضاء الكون وزمن.
Right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of Stranger's Perspective. I am Ibrahim, and with me here is Abdullah and Rukoya. In our last episode, we discussed connected but disconnected. So we discussed about the current trend as regards social media and the issues surrounding social media and how we have become so connected and disconnected at the same time. Also, I want to remind us of the disclaimer that we are not sheikhs, and it's not like we are ustads or anything. So basically what we do in this podcast is to share our experience and then share our knowledge and also share our perspective to matters and issues coming up in the world. The topic for today is judging without judging. And firstly, let us begin with the motivation behind this topic. So judging can be defined as like forming an opinion about something or someone, and this could be because of someone's experience or exposure, or it could be based on someone's experience or exposure or feeling about the person. And I think one very particular thing that is known with this topic is stereotypes. So stereotypes has to do with forming opinion maybe about a group of people or people from a particular place. Let's say maybe people from Washington State are this, or people from the United States are this. So there are stereotypes like that, so that such that once people see you, they begin to behave in a particular way or have this kind of, because of the preconceived notion they've developed about you. Yeah. For instance, there was this time I was in the north, like northern Nigeria. So this day I went to the market to get some groceries. So I was getting peppers and tomatoes, and that particular day I was getting like things I needed, not just for that day, but beyond that day, right? So I got a lot of pepper, and then there was this woman that was just looking at me. She was just looking at me as I was getting the pepper. Like I kept on packing the pepper, and she was like, ah. So at some point, I think she couldn't hold back. Then she just asked me the question, where am I from? Then I said, I'm from so place. Oh, she said, I'm Yoruba, right? I said, yes. Then she was like, no wonder. So I was like, okay, so how does being a Yoruba person, like, how does that connect with me eating a lot of peppers? So I realized later, when I interacted with some of my other colleagues I met in the north, right? So I later realized that there's this preconceived notion about people from Southwest, like Yoruba people, that they eat a lot of pepper. Interestingly, I couldn't really relate with that, right? And at some point, after relating with them, after eating their own food, I actually realized that my own friends, basically, like maybe my own friends, they were actually eating more pepper than me. But they were actually thinking I would be eating more pepper than they were doing. So like, I think that's an example of judging in a way, although it may not be the best example, but I feel that is also suitable for this particular instance. So Abdullah and Rukoya, like, what can you say about this topic and how can you relate to this? Maybe have you had some interesting experiences, or have you had some nasty experiences because you have been judged by someone or something?
Yeah, from my perspective, right? Judging, like you mentioned, is when you form an opinion about people or you make conclusion about them. So mostly it's when you don't have enough information about what is going on, right? So probably you observed something, but you did not pay enough attention, or you were not curious enough to actually seek clarification about what you observed, or you got half-baked information, right, about someone or something, and without digging deep into the real, what's actually going on, the facts of the matter, already from the conclusion, and from there. So like you mentioned, people if you go to some areas, right, they see you as, oh, it's from this region. So the fact that it's from this region, they've already formed a complete notion about you. So if you look at what we experience nowadays, if most of us from Southwest, a lot of people have already have this perspective about people from Northern Nigeria. For example, that they are this, they are that. So even without getting close to them. So I have an example of what you said. So while I was in part 2, I think I stayed with a guy. Second semester, we've used first semester to our first semester. I've never taken a knife to stab the guy while he was sleeping, right? And I've never I've never done anything bad. So we're talking about issues of terrorism and co a second semester one day. So and the guy was like, you guys are terrorists in it, like you Muslims are terrorists. Like he said, it's right to our faces. So he was not hiding it or whatever. So this is not like we said, this is stereotype is bad. So he's a Christian, but I don't mean like Christians do this, right? I'm just talking about this particular guy. So and he's a pastor, so to say. So and I was like, guy, we've lived together in this same room for a year. If I was a terrorist and if I love killing people that are not Muslims, it would have been the easiest thing to do for me, right? I would have stabbed you and you just throw it somewhere. So and he mentioned it, he was not scared. It was just like, bam, you guys are terrorists. What? So people make conclusion without having enough information. So yeah, that's what I think. And if you look at most of there are a lot of ayat in the Quran, right, that talks about making conclusion based on outbreak information. So like Allah says, right? So stay away from much assumptions, because most assumptions they are wrong, right? So most assumptions lead you to sin. And when you make assumption about something or someone without having full information, you tend to hate them. You tend to have resentments towards them. So you hate people for no reason. You'll be giving yourself a problem, and you'll be hating people to you spread wrong information about that, about them, and it leads to hate spreading in the community and people fighting, war here and there. And the foundation of everything was based on false information. So yeah, that's why I think that people make a lot of judgments without having full information, full details about what is going on.
Thank you.
Those are some interesting examples. Well, my own experiences I've had so far is not so far off the hook, like you guys have mentioned. Is basically my hijab all the time, like all of the times. So there are times that I get to a park and maybe I would just want to from school. I want to go back home, and then one of the persons asking me that, are you from the north? So all the way from the north, you came to come out school here. So I'm like, what's the correlation? And before I was that white Jesus, and they'll be like, I thought it's only outside that dress this way. I've never seen a Yoruba Muslim being this strong or this skunk, and she will now wear the hijab, like the full jilbab and all that. I just thought, okay, I'm Yoruba. In fact, they can even go as far as asking, like, where are you from? As if they don't believe me. So that's on one part. There's also the part of those that think that, okay, you're wearing the jilbab just because you've been psyched, like you don't know what you're doing. Like, immediately she joins.
You've been brainwashed, right?
Exactly, you've been brainwashed. In fact, there's even, I belong to this Muslim book club, and there was one day we were having a discussion, and one woman was actually saying her experience because she just traveled to the US, and she was like, one of the times that she had been harassed was when a daughter was asking the father that, why is that woman dressing the way she's dressing? And the father actually answered the daughter, is because she is stupid. So some of them actually have this notion of this person is brainwashed. Like immediately they see, they feel like this one does not know what she's doing. So that's another example. And I've had times, even sometimes in some places, especially when I have to work with people that are not so familiar with the way I dress and all that, I have to always prove myself over and over again that I'm actually capable of doing some things. And before you know it, when you do something, they are wild, and before you know it dies down again, and they begin to start looking at you as, this person still doesn't know what she's doing. So when you do another thing again, they'll be like, oh wow, yes, she did this the other time too. So it's as if by default they already have this thinking of these people don't know what they are doing. They are oppressed. So can you imagine somebody being oppressed and we want to help them and they're not even allowing us to help them and things like that. So basically, it's always been like hijab for me. And maybe other times there are some other petty things, but I feel like the one that has really touched me so much is my hijab, because that's like my experience, like my outer appearance. So it's always like the first thing, even at my place of work, like it's, but that's basically just it anyways. And I don't really expect them to understand. I don't really expect them to, but as long as they are not acting on whatever they feel, or maybe they are not being prejudiced, I'm actually fine with whatever they say behind my back. But once you come to my plan, now start expressing it, that's when I can give you a piece of my mind. So but it's all good. It's all good, Sha.
I think with that example that you gave, right, two things came to my mind. So I think our last discussion, Taiwo mentioned something that people will come to him, like he's one of the top guys in his class. Guy, you're Muslim. So they're like, sure, like, how can a Muslim top a class, right? So it's unexpected. So yeah, like one of the major reasons why people judge is when they have preconceived notion about something. So when you go to a competition and another guy lead, just because Twitter has been full of information that they don't go to school enough. So people like, what? How did he do it?
They rigged it.
People with a quota system. Oh, it was cheating. So they already like conclude. An example that came to my mind, I watched the documentary on YouTube, which was about a Muslim country. I'm not going to mention the name of the country because it might be a bit controversial, right? So it was a documentation about the Islamic education in that country. So now, if you see from the title, it says the Islamic education. It's not talking about the education in general. So that means everything they'll be talking about will be what? Madrasa, Islamic school, no Western school, right? So that's what you expect. So they were now comparing between the girls that attend Islamic school, right, for sometimes, whether they will later go for Western school or they are doing both together, and the ones that go to Western school too. So this girl from Islamic school was talking about how she's very in love with going for Quran class, every morning, doing that till evening, and how she's very passionate about completing, memorization of the Quran and all of that, and how she thinks there are people that go to Western school alone without developing their, Islamic part of it. It's on the wrong path. So that's one. Then the other girl too, from the Western part, felt like, no, it's brainwashing and all of that. She doesn't believe that we are supposed to wear hijab. She doesn't believe that this and this, and she's Muslim too. She knows this and knows that. Now, I'm not going to judge like between both of them. But if you look at the comment section, nobody is saying this one is brainwashed by Western ideology. What everyone is saying is that the other girl from Islamic school has been brainwashed from childhood. She has been made to think that she wear hijab. She has made to think that she has to memorize Quran and all of that. And nobody is mentioned the other girl too. Look at the disparity between the two.
Yeah, I get it.
So there is a conceived notion that you are wearing hijab, like Okoya mentioned, you are being forced to do it. Like even after telling, I'm not being forced to do this thing, right? So I tell people that whenever I put on a trouser that goes beyond my what's it called? Coco said that's ankle.
Yeah, that's
even before I knew that this is sunnah, I hated it. Before I knew that it's not even good as a Muslim, I already dislike it myself. Like it's not comfortable for me. So when you tell people that I do this thing because I love it, they're like, no, it's because your parents have brainwashed you from childhood. Yeah, it's that terrible. So preconceived notions, and when people are giving false information, look at the media, for example, like what we discussed in our last episode. So media has spread out a lot of information attacking some specific people. So for example, when some leading countries say war against terrorists, they're essentially saying war against people that does not agree with our ideology.
Yeah.
Right. So because they control the media,
yes.
So every other person that is not digging deep to actually find the facts behind the matter, agree with them basically. Right. So whatever they say is right. If they come to there and label a whole country as being a terrorizing country, put some false information against them, and a lot of people just agree, just like that. So due to that false information, they create preconceived notions, and you just get terrible. There is hatred between people for no reason, just because he's from that place. He hates him. He has never had anything. He has never tried to find out why or anything. So yeah, that's a very serious issue.
There's an ayah in the Quran in Surah to Hujurat, just like you mentioned earlier. I think the verse you mentioned earlier is also in Surah to Hujurat, right?
Yeah.
So the verse that says, to the end. I think that also talks about like investigating information when information is brought to one. Like I think the translation goes like, "Oh, you believe if there comes to you a disobedient one with information, investigate lest you harm a people out of ignorance and become over what you have done regretful." So I think that ignorance part of it is very important. It's one of the things that is one of the reasons why people judge, right? And I think another thing to talk about here is like, can we actually do without judging? Because I feel judging is like part of us, right? So like, okay, let me combine two questions together. Like,
Okay.
Can we do without judging? And if we can't do without judging, why do we judge? I know we've mentioned some of the reasons earlier, right? But I want us to try and connect those two things together. So we can't do without judging, or can we do without judging? So then let me answer the question first, and then why? What are the reasons? Yeah. So Koya can go first
this time.
Well, I used to think we can't do without judging. I used to think we can't, but even as at that, there are sometimes that even I myself, I just find myself unconsciously doing it. And then I have to call myself back.
Oh, wait, I didn't get that. You used to think we can't?
Yes, I used to think a person can do without actually judging.
Oh, okay, but now you feel we cannot do without this, right?
But with a lot of personal retrospection, like, okay, when you just sit down and you think about some things and some of your actions, and you start to yourself why and why and why, I end up finding out that, okay, it was probably because of this reason. Like, probably I sometimes judged unconsciously.
Okay.
So initially, I used to think that, okay, I'm actually doing this thing out of, no, I'm being objective. I'm not. The thing is, I don't think about it honestly, because we have emotions, right?
Yeah.
And everything that we do, every decision we make, every action that we do actually begins from our thinking. And even sometimes in the formal setting, like in the professional setting, and they're like, okay, it's only based on merits that we are going to promote this person. Believe me, sometimes the person that is being promoted actually has some kind of level of how will I say it, standing with whoever is in charge, or probably he has someone that has spoken on his behalf. And you having a good standing with somebody that can speak on your behalf, definitely that's something to do with their emotions. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. So the thing is, our emotions drive a lot of things. And we feel, we think, and then we act. So I feel like we see, because these emotions are always in place, right? And sometimes we don't take the time to flesh it out. We just act based on, okay, how we are feeling at that particular point in time and things like that. So even sometimes, if you don't even want to judge, sometimes there are sometimes that you just do it unconsciously. Honestly, there's sometimes you just do it very, very unconsciously. And I can give an example. Okay, so I think there's like there's some, okay, when I go out sometimes, right, I try to say Teslim sometimes to people, especially when I see that, okay, this person is identified as a Muslim, right? But there are sometimes that I just see somebody that just uses the scarf. And the thing is, we have a lot of Christians that actually use scarf, right? So because there was a time it had happened before that I greeted someone and she's like, I'm not a Muslim. So when I see somebody dressed the way that other person had, I'm always like, she might not be a Muslim. So I end up not greeting the person. Did you get now? Yeah. So the thing is, sometimes I just feel like, so for the reason, like, even though that had happened, that doesn't mean that I still should not see somebody and not greet the person just because I'm not sure. So unconsciously, I've still actually kind of judged whoever I saw that, okay, probably she's not even a Muslim. So and it was kind of unconscious because I'm like, I've already had an experience before. I don't want it to repeat itself. So I feel like I don't think we can do without it. It can only be managed. Before I used to think we can do without judging, but even when I now find myself even doing it unconsciously, I'm like, so I just have to like manage it and make sure that, okay, whenever you see something happening, you don't act on it negatively. So I feel like just managing it is like, it's just the way to go about it. We can't actually feel. we have emotions, we think. So
That's very important. I think your final your final point is that we have to manage it. We can't do without it. So
exactly, you just have to manage it. Because even if you consciously don't judge, you unconsciously judge for some things.
So that's like saying if you think you don't judge, you actually judge like unconsciously.
I think what I'll use as an example from my own perspective, you guys can correct me, I don't think it's wrong, right? So I don't want to go out of the topic, so I just want to branch more. So when you see someone like, and you are not sure if this person is Muslim or not, and you know you can make Taslim only to Muslim, right? Unless if they are not sure. So unless there's specific hadiths, like from Islamic perspective, that give you the permission to give, Taslim to someone without being Muslim. I don't want to go to fiqh or whatever, but what I want to point out is that we make judgment based on what is obvious to us.
No.
So far, it's not negative. So like what he said, so if I'm going to greet you and it will hurt you, that's why you giving me Muslim greeting, right? So if I think that might happen, right, and I'm not sure whether you are or not, I don't want to hurt you. It's better for me to stay away. At least it's sure for my own dressing that I'm a Muslim. So if you're actually a Muslim, you probably end up greeting me. So, and to cut for. So, but I don't want to go away from the topic. From the question, can we do without judging?
Yeah.
So I think the problem is not judging itself.
Okay.
The problem is judging negatively, right? So judging positively is something that we have to do. So, but I think we'll get to that. So that I don't go out of the topic. So, but judging negatively, just like every other human traits, it's something we can't do without. Like she mentioned, you just have to manage it. So saying we can do without judging is like saying we cannot sin. That's practically impossible because we are human beings. So we make mistakes every now and then. So but what I think we have to do to be able to control it is to just be cognizant of some things. So and that's just like the problems that we mentioned earlier about judging. So before you jump into conclusion about something, give yourself like a few minutes to think about it. There is an article I read recently, The Power of 5 minutes. So give yourself a few minutes to think about it. This thing that I want to say or I want to conclude about someone, is it because I have a preconceived notion about these people, just like we mentioned? Do I think everyone that is Black is bald? Is this something that I've already had in mind? Is that why you are jumping to that conclusion? So do you have a preconceived notion about people? Do you think everyone that is in hijab is dull? Check it. Ask yourself, do I have something at the, am I close-minded? I'm actually open-minded. So before you judge about something. So then you want to be sure, do you have enough information about what you're judging on? So you want to be sure, is it not jealousy? Right? So at times we actually judge based on jealousy. You look at someone, just for instance, one of the most common examples in our environment right now. So you look at someone, is 22 or 25 or 30, whatever. So, and he has a car, right? He has a house, probably. So people already assume straight up that this guy is a Yahoo guy. Okay. No doubt. You get my point. Just because, of course, the fraud is common, but just because it's common, you should not stereotype every people in that category.
Yeah.
So when there was time I stayed in Ibadan with my friend. He has a car. The funniest thing is not even his car. It was from his brother. He got the car from his brother, right? So anytime we go out, myself and him, and we are going to Ibadan, people just naturally hate us for no reason. So if you do a mistake, the way they will shout on you, if you park somewhere, everybody just give us that attitude of like the fraud guys, the fraudulent guys. You get my point? Just because we are in a car, they feel these guys are not supposed to have a car at this age. Nobody even give us excuse like maybe it's their father's car, maybe they borrowed it. Maybe nobody gives us that excuse. People just look at us like these are the Yahoo guys. So you want to know
the mechanic.
Yeah,
maybe they are mechanics.
Thank you. So sometimes you want to see, am I not jealous of this particular person? Am I not saying his dress is bad just because he appears better than me? Am I not saying the guy is proud just because he can do that thing better than me? Actually, because he's better than you in that thing, but he just hasn't. The guy is proud.
Or he's even doing something the other person is not able to do, right?
Able to do. So you want to check these things. the judgment that you are judging people, you want to put yourself in that position. That if I was in this person's position, where I like to be judged like this, without asking what's going on. So you want to avoid all of these things. You want to have your facts right. So then when you do judge, just like Okoya said, we can't actually do without judging, right? But when you judge, you have to do it with empathy, right? You have to, even if you have to judge, like you have enough facts and all of that. So not like you now say bad about your brother and you just go around telling people, or you condemn him, he's a kafir, is a whatever, so or he's a bad person or this or that. So you want to take that conscious effort to, just like you try and verify the information, you want to try and approach him, right, to see if there is any way you can help him to get out of that scenario that you think is wrong. Not just like judging and condemning him straight up. So yeah, I don't think we can do without judging, but I think we can try and stay away from judging in the wrong way. So because if you actually stop judging, the community will become corrupt, right? So everybody just go about doing their things. So nobody see, if you are doing something that is wrong, I'll just like, I don't want to judge.
If somebody shoot somebody with gun.
I don't want to judge, and I'll just walk away. So imagine I'm going on the road and I see like someone trying to strip hijab from an hijab sister, which is something that happens in a lot of areas. And I'm like, oh no, I don't want to judge. Maybe they're just playing. So, you actually want to go there and try to verify. Of course, you should not judge ASAP and just, go and carry a cutlass.
And eat the...
that happens in different North while we were still, it happens in many areas. So if Yoruba people and Hausa people, this happens a lot. Allah save us from this fitna. So they hear that someone, I think this happens in Nigeria a lot. Maybe they might hear that someone somewhere did something bad to someone, and they hear that that person is Hausa, for example, or they hear that that person is Yoruba. The Yoruba people will just
come together,
mobilize themselves, just go and attack Hausa area. At the same time, you can go other way around too. Hausa people just mobilize themselves and go and attack Yoruba area. More often than not, they don't actually verify what happened.
Information.
See the problem. This has happened. I think it's still happened in Ibadan a few months ago. So without getting what happens, someone that is riding on the bike just park. What? Just carry stone or carry. So this is the problem. So not judging is not a problem. Judging, on the wrong side without having the real information is what I think is the major problem. Right.
Thank you for that. I think you've said a lot. So maybe I should just add one or two things to what you've said. So I want to go a little bit technical, right? So there's this concept in machine learning, this concept called neural networks. So basically the way neural network works, from the way I understand, is like you have like a model that you've built, a mathematical model that you've built, and then you basically train that model based on different inputs. Like you feed different inputs into the model, and you already have like, you tell the machine that with this particular input, this is the output. So you feed in a lot of inputs, and then the machine learns that, okay, when I have this kind of input, right, this should be the kind of output. So up to some extent, some machines can predict the future, like not like they can predict. Yeah, predict is predict, right? Predict doesn't mean that is what will happen. So, but if you train a machine so well, it can predict beyond what you used to train the machine. So the point I want to make is, whatever, like every single experience we have every day, every single interaction, every single thing we watch, every single thing we read, every single thing we listen to has an impact on the way we behave. So, the neural network model of machine learning is basically modeled after we humans, right? So we can actually relate that with we humans. So every interaction, every behavior, everything you read in a way has some impact on the way you behave. You understand? And has some impact on your reasoning at the end of the day. So, we watch a lot. Okay, maybe not all of us, right? Oh, today, like there's a lot of media, like Hollywood. You see Bollywood, you see wood, different wood. Like even ordinary Nollywood. I'm sure you've probably had this issue too before that. I'm sure there were some times that you used to think in a way because of what you had seen in Nollywood, like and you see some small kids, the way they are actually thinking, like they do some things in your opinion, and you wonder that why did this guy do this thing, right? And when you think about it very well, you can actually see that, okay, it's because of It's not like their parents are behaving that way, right? Maybe they learned it from somebody in school, but the
the
person they learned it
information.
from in school, maybe it's probably because of what they watched on TV, right? Or what they watched on Hollywood, or whatever. You know, some of those movies, when you watch them, you think you can actually shoot a gun because you see that somebody did like this, you think that if you do, you know, it's all part of what make us as a whole, right? And yeah, it's all part of what makes us as a whole. I'm just trying to say, like, you know, you were talking about before you judge somebody, try to relate, like, try to think about that thing again. But what about if what you have to think about is already messed up? So how will you not end up judging? Like,
You know, that's where the
hijab
preconceived
issue, right?
notions come from.
Yeah.
So more often than not, what you have in your mind is either positive or negative, but you have something at the bottom of your stomach. Right? If that's the information that you're using, that's still wrong.
Yeah, let's call it a model. Let's just call it a model. The model you built for yourself.
Exactly. So
and yeah, I can even relate with the machine learning example you gave. That has to be very, very relevant. So even the data has to be very, very relevant for you to be able to get a credible results, even from your machine learning data that you're trying to train. I don't know if you get what I'm trying. So in the human perspective now, we also have a lot of credible information before we can be able to like judge in the right way or from the right perspective.
They call that bias, right? They call that bias.
Yes, exactly.
So like data bias. You understand? I think you can relate to this, right? Imagine training a robot or training a machine with information that is already biased. Like, what are you going to get on the output?
Exactly.
It's definitely going to be biased, right?
Already.
Yeah, so it's definitely going to be biased. So.
You know, I think I don't say this exactly because I can't remember exactly who developed this bot, like an artificial bot. It was deployed on Twitter. I don't know if it was Microsoft or so that developed this bot. I can actually chat with people, you know, have real conversations on Twitter. So they later took down the bot. And what happened? I think they trained these bots from the information I gathered, might not be true. So they trained these bots from actually the data that they are getting from the internet. They asked to train these bots. So at the end of the day, the bot ended up being racist. The bot ended up being racist. You know, it started giving, you know, race inclined reply. You know, when you start asking some questions like, okay, you know, we ask black from among these and say yes. So for example, Muslim terrorists, and it says yes. Why? Because the information you are gathering from the internet, from conversations that people have, is already biased itself.
Yeah.
So, you know, how we can link that to our discussion now is that, honestly, if you still want to get information, it's not enough to get information, but to get it from the right people.
Yeah.
Right? So, because if an incident happens now, right?
I think you should use the word relatively to avoid. Just say relatively right people.
I mean, no, seriously, right people.
No, when you use the word right people, it is
the persons involved themselves.
People that you trust.
No, even the
I think you shouldn't
involved.
use that. Right? I think you should just use the word relatively, because when you say relatively, somebody can still ask you to define what you mean by right.
Well, you know, the thing is, let me give you the background to this.
Okay.
Right? If someone is known to be someone that is always alcoholic, just for instance, is known, is not assumption. Or someone is known to be a thief, or someone is known to have one. Look at people that collect hadith. Look at the hadiths that we get now and Quran and everything. So when they were collecting hadiths, they have their standard. They'll tell you this person is known to not have enough intellect. So in that way, they cannot say this hadith is sahih.
No.
They cannot say it's authentic.
I think it still goes along with the definition, right? It still goes along with the explanation you gave now, like when you want to know whether an hadith is sahih or not. So you already have some kind of reference, like some references that, okay, this person has to be this, has to be this, has to be this. So that means the person is relatively sahih, or that this is relatively sahih based on that reference. So that's why I want you to use that.
Okay, so if you should get the information from relatively right people, right? Or people that, so like, if I hear a loud bar outside now, right, and I quickly rush out. So if you ask people, like one or two people, a lot of people will not know what's actually going on. But they will tell you, oh, is this thing, is that it? Because they want to answer. That happens a lot. You find out, and the funniest thing is, one person will give you wrong information. someone else asks you, you pass that information, you spread
the
that
person.
information. Before you know it, wrong information is actually spreading. So at the end of the day, you'll not be able to distinguish between right or wrong. So I think if you are going to make, you are going to gather information about something, you should do it from relatively right people. If you know that, okay, I want to ask about, look at the issue of nikah, for example. So I want to ask about someone that, is this person a sahih person, a person that is, good and kind and all of those things. Then you go and ask from person that they are not in good terms. What will he say? So you are not going to get the right information.
Brother,
yeah, so it's very important to actually strive. It's either you don't judge or you do it right. You get my point? It's either you don't judge or you do it right. So if you want to do it right, you have to put the effort in doing it. So particularly on things that don't concern you. So, but like I said, at times you just have to judge, right? But when you do it, so the worst case is to actually walk up to the person and ask him, brother, why? Right? So because if someone is suspicious, there's no way you're not judging. Look at what happened. Look at this hadith of, the Prophet ﷺ was talking with one of our wife, right?
Yes.
At a night. I think it was after Fajr or it was after Maghrib. I'm not sure. I said it was like dark time.
Yeah, it was dark.
And some Sahabas they were passing by. They just passed by. So the Prophet called them back, like, come.
No, I think when they saw the prophets, they increased their pace.
They walked fast. Exactly.
They increased their pace.
So then you call them back, like, come. This is my wife.
No.
What was he trying to do? He was trying to avoid suspicion.
Yeah.
If someone put themselves in a suspicious area, there is no way we will not be curious, right? There's no way we will not be curious. If I find you sitting in an alcohol shop while others were drinking alcohol, then I find you inside of that place, and I know you to be a brother that did not used to drink alcohol. Imagine me just walking by. I can walk by for that particular time. It's good that you do it the right time, not just walk up to him while others were drinking and say, brother, what are you doing among these bad people? Right? So then, it's after, like, at the end of the day, maybe when you leave or when I meet you, I can ask, brother, what were you doing? You went to go and give them that one, did you go and give them, admonition, or what exactly were you doing? So you give that person excuse.
Or were you taking admonition?
Exactly. So you give that person excuse, you walk up to them, you get the right information. And if you actually find out that, they actually derailed, maybe they started looking at already, then you can try and admonish them. You get my point. So we have to judge. We have to judge, but we have to do it right.
Okay.
So we have to be empathetic.
So I think this takes us to the next question, right? So what should you do before judging? I think you just mentioned this. You mentioned, like, you have to be empathetic.
But before I mentioned that, something came to my mind. People used to say, like, look at yourself very well before you look at others. Most times when we complain about people, it's mostly because you are not paying attention to yourself. So this is not about judging. This is not about how to judge. I'm talking about before judging now. So, like, I'm reversing to our earlier discussion.
I just want to point it out. Things that really affect how we judge.
Yeah, if you're not paying attention to yourself, so you see a lot of bad in people. So when you see that sister is like this, it's mostly because you are not lowering your gaze outside. No, honestly, that might not be like 100% absolute, right? But it's mostly because you are not lowering your gaze. You find the sister in club. How did you find the sister in club?
What are you doing
in the club? So, like, honestly, before, if you want to, one of the fastest way to reduce the level that you judge people is to actually judge yourself first.
Yeah.
Right? If you judge yourself first a lot, people don't like bad to be done to them.
No.
If you don't like bad to be done to you and you are very passionate about that, then you should not do bad to people too. So if you judge that person, the funniest thing about there is this concept in engineering. So I can't remember the name. If I look at you and I have a preconceived notion about you, I look at Ukwaya and I have something about her. I look at this person, I have something about him. While if I'm walking on the road too, it will feel like 1 million people are looking at me. If someone is mistakenly looking at my direction, I already have the perception that maybe he's looking at my cap, that the cap is not or maybe he's looking at my shoe, that my shoe is old fashioned.
That's
or maybe it doesn't like. And the funniest thing, the person might just be lost in thought and just looking without looking at you.
No,
So
no.
if you do something a lot, it makes you think people are actually doing it to you too.
Deep.
Yes.
That's deep.
But if you don't do it a lot, honestly, you just ignore a lot of things.
No.
Just ignore a lot of things. Like unless you really have to like correct someone, you see that your brother, just like this of Abu Hurairah, Muslim, a Muslim is the mirror of another Muslim, right? So what does mirror mean? So I can't see myself when I'm wrong.
No.
Right? Most times I can't see myself. So, but because you're my friend, we interact a lot. You can see that what Abdullah is doing is not right. So your responsibility is to call me, so to attention. But apart from that, on a normal day, you should just ignore a lot of things. Honestly, you would have more peace. You'll not be worried about a lot of things.
Exactly.
I'll be thinking about what was that brother that sister doing in that junction. And you also now, you get. You will see them. You don't have all those random thoughts coming to your head.
I can have an example. In UI then, when we see a brother and a sister talking on that, like in our mosque,
that's it.
There's this tree in our mosque. We call it
Okay.
So, bro, because there are a lot of brothers and sisters that would have actually been seen talking on that tree, and before you know it, the nikah date is out. So, so because of that, there are sometimes that two friends can just be talking, a brother and a sister, and before you know, everybody just think that is something going on, is something going on, is something going on. So so I really relate with what Abdullah is really saying. Like,
yeah, I get it.
Because you do something, when you see other people doing something like that, you tend to think that they are doing it because of you or this and that.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of examples to that effect as well. But just to save time, you can just like move on. But if you are the type of person now, for instance, that you don't think that people that are talking under that tree is because they have something to do with the brother, you feel free to even be able to talk to any brother because you know that like you are free now. So, but if at the time that you've always been judging that if you see anybody under that place saying something is going on, even yourself, you now be conscious of I don't want them to see me there. I don't want them to see me there.
Exactly.
I feel like they're actually mirrors of each other and one another. So sometimes when we say bad in somebody, honestly, most of the time is actually from us. Most of the time, if we are unable to like have a positive thinking for like on that person's action, is because there is a lack of positivity within us. That's why we're unable to identify any positivity in their action. Even if the action is wrong or is negative or okay, from what is apparent, like I don't think there's any excuse, but just give the person an excuse. Like I am Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that you should give your brother excuses, like at least 70. So just try to give them excuses. And before you know it, even yourself, you have a lot of peace of mind. You'll be able to focus on yourself. You'll be able to call yourself into account. There was one day I was reading, like I don't really remember much now. That there's probably a Sahaba or just somebody that was saying that there's actually something he's scared of, like being called to account on the day of judgment for the things he himself did not even call himself to account on. So, and that is like a very big loss. And the thing is, if you are busy with other people's affairs, you would never have time for yourself.
No.
You would always see what this person is doing right, and you always be seeing what you are doing wrong. So, like, just like tend to just reduce the focus and the attention on people's actions or their deeds, and just focus on your own self, your own feelings. Ali Rodiallahu Anhu said that the worst of our faults is actually our interest in the fault of others. Like that's like the worst of the fault a person can have. So if you see somebody that is always saying bad things about people, believe me, that person is the evil person. I once read an hadith yesterday where Rasulullah was saying that if you see a brother call another brother an unbeliever or a disbeliever, believe me, one of them is the disbeliever, and most of the time it's that person that is pointing the finger. So may I just help us. You
remind me of two ayats from the Quran. I know this is getting too long, but just ayats they are very important. Honestly, this is a very serious topic and it's actually interesting because most of us fall in that issue.
I was thinking we should do a part 2, right?
Yeah, I'll probably do a part 2, like solutions or something. Yeah, so
maybe we should end
I really want to talk about
right?
it.
Okay.
So there's this ayat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu alaykum anfusakum la yabugukum man dalla idha tadaytum. that all you have believed upon you is yourself. That's the first assignment. That's the first assignment, yourself. When you've been guided, someone that is misguided will not affect you. So you get, if you really pay attention to yourself, you are very focused about your life. A lot of things that people do will not even move you up.
Yeah.
Your own is to just give them advice, like what Allah told the prophet that after you've admonished them, you are not to like, start and what do you call it? Start looking at them. Or what's the English for this things? Start and be like, checking them around, following them around. Like what's the ayah that فما أرسلناك عليهم حفيظا what's it? That you are not sent to be monitoring them around.
Yeah, he's not supposed to monitor. Like, just give them admonition.
Your own is just tell them what you think is right.
I think I know the area you're talking about.
You get, like,
can't remember.
فإن أعرضوا فما أرسلناك عليهم حفيظا إن عليك إلا البلاغ.
Okay.
If they don't listen to you, your own is not to follow them around and what are you doing there? I think I told you that this is not. So your own is not to monitor them in their house everywhere. Your own is just your own is to make sure that you deliver the message. The other ayah that comes to my mind when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Fala tuzaku anfusakum." About what Koya was saying. "Fala tuzaku anfusakum." Don't how can I translate that? So don't see yourself as someone that is free from those sins. Don't see yourself as someone that is perfect.
Is it pure?
Pure. Don't see yourself as someone that, mashallah, we are trying now. We are not like this people. Mostly how that comes about is when you see a lot of fault in people. It makes you feel like you are the right person.
Infallible.
It makes you feel like you are infallible. And that's a very grave thing in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah. So I think we should go ahead and talk about what are the solutions to this thing.
Okay. But I have a suggestion. I think we might want to make this like another episode, right? This is quite long already. I think there's still a lot. There's still a lot to say about this topic, right? There's still a lot to say. So I feel there's still a lot of experiences to share. I'm sure even Abdullah and Ruqayya still have more stuff you want to, talk about. So I don't know. I'm suggesting that we make this like we stop here and then maybe we can pick that up in another episode and just
please, let's do that because it's even time for Salah.
No, this is time for Salah already. So alhamdulillah, I think we've talked about a lot of things. We've talked about judging, and then we've talked about things that cause judging, and then why we can do without judging, right? And then what we can do to alleviate judging. Alleviate is not like eliminate, right? It's just to reduce to a bare minimum. Okay, I wanted to say something about that, but I don't want to make it longer. So maybe we can talk about that in the next episode. All right, so thank you for.
You guys don't want to make conclusive remarks?
Okay, so should we do that?
Yeah, I think if anybody asks.
All right, so okay. No, I think Abdullah should go first. Some 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
Yeah, actually, I just want to make a disclaimer that we saying all of these things doesn't mean we don't do it, right?
No.
So it doesn't mean we are pure, and it doesn't mean we are free from it. So it's just that the more we say it, the more we think about it too.
Yeah.
So while we are trying to, assess yourself, it's our responsibility to try and talk to other people. So by listening to this, the funniest thing is after this podcast, I actually sit down and listen to it myself too. Because like the way we are talking now, I don't learn a lot of things from what you are saying. But by the time I actually sit down and listen to it all over, subhanAllah, honestly, I learned a lot. Wallah. So the reason why we're talking about this is to assist ourselves first. So because that's the number one. Then if people gain from that, alhamdulillah, that would be good for us too. So that's just what I have to say.
Oh,
okay, in conclusion, I just feel like we should not see ourselves as somebody that cannot do without judging, because a lot of people are so deep into it that they don't even think it's a call to action for them to try to wrestle against it. So the thing is, we would always do it, yes, but we can always manage it and try to be better versions of ourselves. So nobody should see themselves as, but I'm also used to this, and how would I live without it and all that? You can actually, with Allah's help, you can. And we hope that by listening to our podcast as well, you'd be able to learn a lot, and you will also be able to refer it to other people so that they can actually also learn from it.
No, I think those are very important points that you both noted. So the last note I'm just going to end on is observe and verify more. Yeah, so try to verify, investigate as much as you can. It's not like you should be digging into matters that don't concern you, right? So just try and investigate a lot, right? Investigate when you need to. Yeah. So I think it's a very, very important thing to do. Don't listen to one side of stories. Yeah, because two people are fighting, you went to listen to the one that is closest to you, and then you start saying, Labaja, JB, Labaja is at somebody's at fault, and then you start saying things like that, and you've not even verified the information from the other person. Yeah, I think I have some stories to share around this in the next episode, inshallah. So let's end on these notes, and then thank you for listening to this episode, and see you in the next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
بإسلامي وإيماني أضاء الكون وزمن بإسلامي وإيماني أضاء الكون وزمن